Have you ever stood face to face with the person who destroyed you while holding flowers meant for his new fiancée? Picture this. You're in an art gallery, the walls spinning, your vision blurring, and the last thing you see before hitting the ground is the concerned face of the woman wearing your ex-boyfriend's engagement ring. Now, rewind 12 hours. You're at the airport, orchids in hand, waiting to welcome your boss's important business partner. The doors open, and there he is, the man who promised you forever, then disappeared like smoke. The man you spent 3 years trying to forget, standing there in a tailored navy suit, success radiating from every inch of him, his hand intertwined with someone else's. That's exactly what happened to me. And what I didn't know was that this reunion would unravel secrets I'd buried for 3 years and force me to confront a truth that would change everything. If you've ever had to face someone from your past when you thought you'd moved on, hit that like button. You're going to want to hear this. And subscribe because this story gets a whole lot more complicated. Trust me. My name is Naomi Okoro. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent the last 2 years convincing myself that I've moved on. I work as the executive assistant to Victoria Adebayo, one of the most formidable corporate strategists in West Africa. Victoria built her consultancy firm from absolutely nothing, and she doesn't tolerate mediocrity. She doesn't accept excuses. She doesn't have time for emotional weakness. Neither do I. Not anymore. The woman I was 3 years ago, she's gone. That version of Naomi who waited by the phone at midnight, who believed in whispered promises, who worked herself to exhaustion because she thought love meant sacrifice, she doesn't exist anymore. What remains is someone who shows up 15 minutes early to every meeting, someone who executes flawlessly, someone who keeps her vulnerabilities locked behind a smile that never quite reaches her eyes. People say you never know the value of something until you lose it. I used to think that meant you'd finally appreciate what you had. But here's what they don't tell you. Sometimes you discover that what you lost wasn't nearly as valuable as what you sacrificed to keep it. I used to beg for love. Now I just want peace. My best friend Zara thinks I'm too hard on myself. She's probably right. But Zara didn't have to rebuild herself from scratch. She didn't have to learn how to be a person again after giving every piece of herself away. She worries about me in ways I pretend not to notice. Like insisting on driving me to the airport that Thursday afternoon, claiming she had nothing better to do, when we both knew she was checking on me. The morning everything changed started ordinary enough. I was knee-deep in quarterly reports, my third cup of coffee growing cold beside my laptop, when Victoria swept into my office with that elegant urgency that made everyone in her orbit move faster. "Naomi, I need you to handle something for me tomorrow. My new business partner is arriving from London. His expertise in international market expansion is exactly what we need for the UAE project." I pulled up my calendar immediately. Of course. What time is the flight? 2:15. And Naomi, first impressions matter. Make sure everything is perfect. Flowers, smooth transport, the works. He's not just a partner. He's potentially a game changer for this firm. I nodded, already making notes. Understood. Any preferences? Flowers, I mean. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Something sophisticated. Orchids, perhaps. You have good taste. I trust your judgment. That evening I found myself at Lagos's most exclusive florist, surrounded by blooms I couldn't afford on a regular day. The elderly woman behind the counter smiled knowingly as I deliberated between white and purple orchids. "For someone special?" she asked. "For my boss's business partner. Professional." Her eyes twinkled. Sometimes the professional ones become personal. I forced a polite smile and chose the white orchids. Pristine, elegant, emotionally neutral, perfect. If you've ever given everything to someone who didn't deserve it, drop a comment and tell me I'm not alone. And if you're new here, subscribe because karma has a way of bringing people back around, and you're going to want to see how this plays out. Zara picked me up the next morning in her boyfriend's sleek Mercedes. She'd insisted on driving, and I'd learned not to argue with her when she used that particular tone. "So, mystery business partner," she said, navigating Lagos traffic with practiced ease. "Victoria finally tell you anything about him?" "Just that he's brilliant, and we're lucky to have him." "Young? Old? Married?" "Zara, what? I'm just trying to gauge if he's going to be insufferable or tolerable." I laughed, despite myself. "Does it matter?" "It always matters. You spend more time with Victoria's associates than you do with actual humans. You're actual humans. Barely. She swerved around a Danfo bus. Nye, when was the last time you went on a date? My hands tightened around the orchid box in my lap. I'm focused on my career right now. That's what you said 6 months ago. And 6 months before that. Because it's still true. Zara shot me a look I pretended not to see. We both knew what we weren't talking about. Or rather, who. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken history, until Zara finally said the words I'd been dreading. He's back in Nigeria, you know. My stomach dropped. What? Adrian. I saw it on Instagram last week. Some design conference in Abuja. There were pictures. The name hit me like a physical blow. Adrian Okafor, former struggling architect turned internationally acclaimed designer. The man who'd consumed 3 years of my life. The man I'd funded his dreams while working 2 jobs. The man who'd promised me forever in 1,000 small ways before vanishing the moment his career took off. Good for him, I said, my voice flat. Nye, listen. I don't want to talk about him, Zara. Not today. Not ever. She sighed, but mercifully changed the subject. By the time we reached the airport, I'd almost convinced myself that the tightness in my chest was just anxiety about making a good impression. Nothing more. I thought I was prepared for anything. I'd survived heartbreak, rebuilt myself from scratch, and mastered the art of keeping people at arm's length. But the universe wasn't done testing me. Let me tell you about Adrian, about us, about the version of myself I've spent 3 years trying to forget. We met at university. I was in my final year studying business administration. He was a struggling architecture student with more dreams than money, more passion than practical sense. He used to sketch buildings on napkins during lectures, his eyes bright with visions of structures that could change skylines. I fell in love with his ambition before I fell in love with him, or maybe they were always the same thing. Our first real conversation happened in the library during exam season. He'd been sitting across from me for 3 hours, sketching furiously, occasionally running his hands through his hair in frustration. When he finally looked up, our eyes met, and he smiled. "You've been staring at that same page for 20 minutes, he said. "You've been drawing the same building for 3 hours, I replied. He laughed. "Fair point. Adrian Okafor. Naomi Okoro. That's how it started. Simple, easy, like breathing. The romance grew slowly. Then, all at once, late-night study sessions that turned into deeper conversations. His hand finding mine under the table. The first kiss in the rain outside the faculty building, both of us soaked and laughing. The way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world who truly saw him. "When I make it, you'll be right there with me," he used to say. "Front row seat to everything. I promise, Nye. You and me, always." I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. After graduation, reality hit hard. Adrian couldn't find work. The architecture firms wanted experience he didn't have. His portfolio was brilliant, but brilliance doesn't pay rent. So I worked. I took a job at a marketing firm during the day and did freelance consulting at night. I paid for our tiny apartment in Yaba. I bought his art supplies. I covered the bills when his freelance gigs fell through. I didn't mind, not at first, because I believed in him. I believed in us. And when you love someone, you invest in their dreams, right? You sacrifice, you support, you hold them up when they can't stand on their own. His breakthrough came 2.5 years into our relationship, an international design competition, sustainable architecture for developing nations. Adrian spent 6 weeks on that proposal, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and determination. I proofread every word. I helped him prepare the presentation. I believed in that project as much as he did. When he won, I cried harder than he did. The prize came with a contract. A prestigious firm in London wanted him. It was everything he'd dreamed of, everything we'd worked for. Night, he got the news. "This is our chance. I'll go, get established, and then I'll send for you." 6 months, maybe less. I promise. Another promise. The first month, we talked every day. Video calls that stretched past midnight. Him describing London, the firm, the projects. Me sharing office gossip, planning our future. It felt temporary. manageable. The second month, the calls grew shorter. He was busy, big project, important clients. I understood. I was patient. The third month, days would pass between messages. His texts grew brief. Work was intense. He'd call soon. He promised. By the fourth month, I was the only one initiating contact. My calls went to voicemail. My messages were read, but not answered. I told myself he was just overwhelmed, that he still loved me, that the promises still meant something. The fifth month, his social media told me everything his silence wouldn't. Pictures at galas, award ceremonies, him in designer suits, shaking hands with industry giants, living the life we'd planned, without me. The final message I sent him was simple. Are we done? Just tell me if we're done. He never replied. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of rebuilding, of therapy, of learning how to be Naomi again, without Adrian attached to every dream, every plan, every version of my future. 3 years of convincing myself I was over it. Over him, I wasn't. The arrivals hall at Lagos International Airport was chaos. Families reuniting, business signs held high, the cacophony of a dozen languages blending into white noise. I stood near the exit, orchids held carefully, scanning the crowd for someone who looked like they might be Victoria's game changer. My phone buzzed. Victoria. Flight landed early. He's through customs. Look for a tall man in a navy suit. He'll be with his fiancée. Fiancée. Professional and taken. Perfect. I straightened my posture, arranged my face into what I privately called my corporate warm expression, and waited. The doors slid open. Travelers poured through. Business people. Families. A group of students. And then time stopped. Because walking through those doors, navy suit impeccable, success radiating from every purposeful stride, was Adrian. My Adrian. Except he wasn't mine. He never really had been. Our eyes met across the crowded terminal. I watched recognition flash across his face. Surprise. Confusion. Something that might have been pain. The world narrowed to just the two of us. 3 years of silence, screaming in the space between us. My heart forgot how to beat. My lungs forgot how to breathe. Every carefully constructed wall I'd built came crashing down in a single moment. Then she stepped forward. A stunning woman with honey-colored skin and effortless elegance that made my carefully chosen outfit feel suddenly inadequate. She was smiling, radiant, her hand resting possessively on Adrian's arm. "Are you from Adebayo Consultancy?" she asked warmly. My mouth moved. Words came out. I heard myself say, "Yes, welcome to Lagos." I extended the orchids with hands that somehow remained steady, hands that had no right to be steady when my entire world was tilting sideways. The woman accepted them with genuine delight. How thoughtful. They're beautiful. I'm Simone Laurent, and this is Adrian Okafor, he finished, his voice exactly as I remembered. Rich, warm, the voice that had once promised me everything. "Lovely to meet you both," I said, each word costing me something. "I'm Naomi. I'll be escorting you to Mrs. Adebayo." Adrian's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Naomi works for Victoria?" "I'm her executive assistant," I confirmed, looking anywhere but at him. "What a small world," Simone said cheerfully, oblivious to the tension crackling between Adrian and me like a live wire. "Adrian, didn't you mention knowing someone named Naomi back in your Lagos days?" Time suspended. I could feel Adrian's panic, his scramble for the right words. I held my breath, waiting for him to acknowledge what we'd been, what I'd meant to him, what we'd built together. "An old acquaintance," he finally said. "From university." Acquaintance. The word landed like a slap. 3 years of my life reduced to a single word. 3 years of shared dreams, midnight conversations, scraped together rent money, promises made in the dark, love that had consumed me entirely. Acquaintance. I felt something crack inside my chest, something I thought I'd already broken and healed. Turns out you can break the same heart twice. The fracture lines just go deeper the second time. "Well, any friend of Adrian's," Simone said warmly, completely missing the devastation playing out in front of her. "We're going to get along wonderfully. I can tell. Now, here's where it gets really complicated. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. Smash that like button, And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because part 2 is going to blow your mind. You need to see what happens next. The drive to Victoria's office was 45 minutes of exquisite torture. Zara had disappeared after one look at my face, texting that she'd pick me up later. Mr. Easy, the company driver, navigated traffic while I sat in front, acutely aware of Adrian's presence in the back seat. Every breath felt calculated, every moment stretched into eternity. The car smelled like leather and his cologne, that same cologne, the one I'd bought him for his birthday 3 years ago, the one I could still smell on the pillow after he left, the one that had haunted me for months. Simone filled the silence with bright chatter about London, their flight, her excitement about exploring Lagos. She had that effortless charm some people are born with, genuine, warm, impossible to dislike, which somehow made everything worse. Adrian's been telling me about the food, she said, leaning forward between the seats. I'm desperate to try proper jollof rice, the kind you can't get in London. There's a place in Lekki, I heard myself say, Mama Ngozi's, best jollof, in Lagos. You should take us, Simone exclaimed. Adrian, wouldn't that be perfect? I'm sure Naomi has better things to do, Adrian said quickly. Our eyes met in the rearview mirror. His held a plea I refused to acknowledge. It's no trouble, I said sweetly. Part of the service. The remainder of the drive passed in a blur of Simone's enthusiastic questions and my autopilot responses. I pointed out landmarks, recommended restaurants, played the perfect tour guide, while my mind screamed, how dare he? How dare he reduce us to acquaintances? How dare he sit there calm and composed while I was drowning? How dare he bring her here? How dare he move on so completely while I was still picking up pieces? Victoria's office was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in Victoria Island. I ushered them through the marble lobby, into the executive elevator, watching the floor numbers climb while my pulse hammered. Impressive building, Adrian murmured. Mrs. Adebayo believes in success. You can see, I replied, professionally distant. The elevator doors opened to reveal Victoria herself, elegant in a tailored cream suit, her smile calculated and welcoming. Adrian, finally, she extended her hand. Your work in Dubai was magnificent. I've been looking forward to this partnership. The pleasure is mine, Victoria. May I introduce my fiancée, Simone Laurent? She's an international relations consultant. Delightful. Victoria's eyes sparkled with approval. Naomi, you've met our guests? Yes, ma'am. Excellent. Why don't you show Simone to the lounge while Adrian and I discuss preliminary business? We'll all have lunch together afterward. The lounge was designed to impress. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos. Leather furniture that cost more than most people's annual salary. Abstract art that belonged in museums. I poured Simone sparkling water with steady hands while my mind continued its freefall. You have such poise, Simone said, settling into a chair. How long have you worked for Victoria? 2 years. Do you enjoy it? She's brilliant. Demanding, but brilliant. I've learned more from her than I did in 4 years of university. Simone smiled. Adrian said something similar about his early mentor. He's come so far. She gazed at her engagement ring, a stunning sapphire that caught the light. Sometimes I can hardly believe this is our life now. Something in her voice made me look at her more closely. Genuine wonder. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't showing off. She was simply happy. And somehow that made everything hurt more. How did you meet? I asked, hating myself for needing to know. At a gala in London, 6 months ago. I was there representing my firm. He was receiving an award for sustainable architecture. We started talking about humanitarian design and... She laughed softly. We closed down the venue. He's extraordinary, isn't he? Yes, I said quietly. He is. He works too hard, though. Sometimes I worry he's carrying the weight of the world. She looked at me earnestly. Do you know what I mean? Like he's trying to prove something, even though he's already successful. I knew exactly what she meant. Adrian had always been driven by demons he wouldn't name, always running from something he wouldn't articulate. Even when we were together, even in our happiest moments, there was always that edge, that hunger, that need to be more, achieve more, prove more. Some people are just wired that way, I said carefully. My phone buzzed. Victoria, meeting running long. Please take Simone for a tour of the art gallery downstairs. Adrian and I will join you for lunch at 1. The gallery was Victoria's pride, a rotating collection of contemporary African art she'd spent years curating. Simone was genuinely fascinated, asking thoughtful questions about each piece while I provided context I'd absorbed through osmosis. We moved through the space slowly. Sculptures, paintings, installations, each piece a story, each artist pouring emotion into form and color. And then we stopped in front of a massive canvas that made my breath catch. Abstract figures in bold reds and golds, bodies intertwined in what could have been embrace or conflict, two forms bleeding into each other, impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Connection or dissolution, love or destruction. This one speaks to you, Simone said quietly. I blinked. I'm sorry. The way you're looking at it, like you understand something the artist was trying to say. I studied the painting more closely, feeling the truth rise up in my throat unbidden. Sometimes, I said slowly, we give so much of ourselves to someone that we lose track of where we end, and when they leave, we don't know how to be whole again. Silence stretched between us, heavy, meaningful. That's beautiful, Simone finally said, and heartbreaking. I realized, too late, that I'd revealed too much. Sorry, I don't usually get philosophical about art. Don't apologize. That's the most honest thing anyone's said to me in weeks. She touched my arm gently. Naomi, can I ask you something? My throat tightened. Of course. Do you and Adrian have history? Real history? The question hung in the air between us, sharp and unavoidable. Every instinct screamed at me to lie, to protect myself, to maintain the professional facade. But something in Simone's eyes, a knowing sadness perhaps, or genuine compassion, made the truth claw its way up my throat. The gallery tilted, the paintings blurred into streams of color. My vision narrowed to a pinpoint. I heard Simone calling my name from very far away, felt my knees buckle. The floor rushed up to meet me, and then there was nothing but darkness. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. Antiseptic smell, beeping monitors, soft sheets, the fluorescent hum of hospital lights. I opened my eyes slowly, disoriented. A private room, medical equipment, and sitting in the chair beside my bed, looking more worried than I'd seen him in 3 years, was Adrian. You're awake, he said softly. I blinked, trying to process. Why am I here? What happened? The doctor said you collapsed due to severe emotional and physical stress. You've been under too much pressure and your body gave out. How long had you been pushing yourself, Nye? The nickname hit me like a physical blow. He had no right to call me that. Not anymore. How come you're here? I asked, my voice hoarse. Simone called me. She was scared and worried. Where is she? She went to get food. He leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. What's bothering you, Naomi? It's nothing. Just stress. That's not true. You don't collapse in the middle of your day from just stress. Something is going on with you, and you've been carrying it alone. You'd be the last person I'd tell my problems to. I looked away from him. Why do you care now? I've always cared. I still do. Oh, please don't piss me off, Michael. This is all a misunderstanding, Naomi. You don't have to hate me. I'm glad you know I hate you. Yeah, I know, and I deserve it. But just hear me out. Hear you out exactly on what? The words erupted from me. 3 years of pain, finally finding voice. That you returned after 5 years of ignoring and neglecting me, and now you're acting good? Or how I wasted years of my life trying to make sure you achieved your dreams, and when you did, you threw me out of your life like I meant nothing? It's not how it seems, he started. Your fiancé is coming. Perhaps it would be better you keep quiet. The door opened. Simone walked in carrying a paper bag, her face lighting up when she saw me awake. I'm glad you're awake, Ember. She caught herself. I mean, Naomi. Sorry. Yeah, I'm fine now. I was worried for a bit. She looked between Adrian and me, and I wondered what she saw, what she'd figured out. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Victoria wants the location. I should text her. Simone touched his arm. Babe, we should get going. I'm sure someone from the office will take Naomi home. I think I need a moment alone, I said quietly. Adrian stood reluctantly. We'll check on you later. After they left, I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything that had happened crash over me. What happens when Naomi wakes up changes everything. Part 2 drops next week, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. Like this video if you're hooked. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story. Comment what you think Adrian's real reason for coming back is, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The truth about why Naomi really collapsed. It's not what you think. I didn't know it then, but that moment in the art gallery, before everything went black, was the last time I'd see the world the same way. Because what I was about to discover wasn't just about Adrian. It wasn't just about a broken heart or unfinished business. Sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, face to face with the person you've been running from, because healing doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from confronting. And I was about to confront a lot more than just my ex, because the collapse, that wasn't just about stress. And the pressure I'd been under, it wasn't just about seeing Adrian again. There was something else, something I hadn't told anyone, something that had been eating away at me for months, draining my bank account, stealing my sleep, threatening everything I'd worked so hard to build. And Adrian's sudden return to Nigeria, that wasn't coincidence either. The next 48 hours would reveal truths I'd spent years hiding, secrets that would shatter the careful life I'd constructed, choices that would force me to decide who I really was and what I was willing to fight for. But first, I had to get out of this hospital bed. I had to face Victoria and explain why her perfect assistant had collapsed during a simple gallery tour. I had to figure out how to work alongside the man who'd broken me while maintaining my dignity, my job, and my sanity. And I had to do it all while keeping my secret hidden. Because if anyone found out the real reason I'd been under so much pressure, the real reason I'd collapsed, the real reason I couldn't afford to lose this job no matter what emotional torture it put me through, everything would fall apart. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 years ago, I'd given Adrian everything I had, every spare dollar, every ounce of energy, every piece of my heart, and he'd left anyway. Now here I was again, giving everything I had to something that might destroy me. Except this time, I was doing it alone, and the stakes were infinitely higher. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, just 3 words that made my blood run cold. Time is running out. I closed my eyes, feeling tears slide down my temples into my hair. Sometimes you survive heartbreak, only to discover that life has much crueler tests waiting. Sometimes the person who broke you comes back not to fix what they destroyed, but to witness you breaking all over again under the weight of burdens they'll never understand. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe gives you exactly the crisis you need to finally find the strength you've been looking for. I didn't know which one this was yet, but I was about to find out. Part 2 would reveal everything, the secrets, the stakes, the real reason Adrian came back, the truth about what I'd been hiding, and the choice that would change everything. Because this story, it wasn't really about a woman running into her ex at the airport. It was about what happens when your past and your present collide so violently that you're forced to finally deal with the future you've been too afraid to face. It was about learning the difference between sacrifice and self-destruction, about understanding that closure doesn't come from other people, it comes from within, about discovering that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not hold on tighter, but finally let go. And it was about realizing that the person you need to forgive most isn't always the one who hurt you. Sometimes it's yourself, for believing you were worth less than you gave, for accepting treatment you never deserved, for thinking love meant losing yourself instead of finding yourself more fully. I spent 3 years becoming a woman who didn't need anyone. What I hadn't learned yet was how to become a woman who knew her worth even when she did. But I was about to get a crash course. And Adrian? He was about to learn that the woman he'd left behind wasn't the same person he was looking at now. That you can't reduce someone's significance in your life just because acknowledging it is inconvenient. That some debts can't be paid with success or apologies or convenient silences. The game was about to change. The truth was about to surface. And nothing would ever be the same again. This is just the beginning. Part 2 is where everything you think you know gets turned upside down. Don't miss it. Subscribe now, because what comes next, you're not ready for it, but you're going to want to be there when it happens.